Introduce myself first. My name is Emma Kaler. I'm an employer branding intern here at Siemens Digital Industries Software. And before we get started with the question part of our webinar, I have a few quick announcements. So this session will be recorded and shared via email with all of the registrants. And during the discussion, we would love to hear from you. So we hope that you will use the stage chat on the right side of your screen to send messages, comments, and questions to the panelists and to one another. But other than that, I see more people joining from all over. So I am going to get us started, and I'm super excited to kick today's event off. This is advice for early career women and students, sponsored by Siemens Digital Industries Software. And then for those who don't know, Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Millions of women visit Fairygodboss for career connections, jobs, community advice, hard to find intel about how companies treat women, and virtual events like this one. We're thrilled to be joined by three leaders at Siemens Digital Industries Software and three of my favorites. So we have Jess, Tori, and Sadie here. And I'm going to have them each introduce themselves. We'd love to hear what's going on in your life personally, professionally, and what you do in your role today at Siemens Digital Industries Software. So Tori, we'll start with you. Will you please introduce yourself and your role here at Siemens Digital Industries Software?
Of course. Thanks, Emma. Hi, everyone. I'm Tori. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, and graduated from the University of Cincinnati in 2018. I received a bachelor's in communications and public relations with a focus on human resources. Right after graduation, I had my first job in Columbus, Ohio, starting it off in the government sector, working for the Board of Commissioners. I had a general HR role, and that really kind of got my feet wet with different tasks related to all different HR duties. After a year, I decided to get in a faster paced environment. So I made my way back to Cincinnati, Ohio, and started with Paycor. Paycor is an HR software company, and immediately after being in the tech industry just for a short while, I realized that was a place I wanted to be. In the peak of COVID in 2020, I stumbled upon an opportunity here at Siemens as a university relations operations specialist. I ended up interviewing, accepting the role, and I've been here ever since. One thing to note is back at my time at UC, I did have an HR internship in a diversity office on campus. And that was when I really realized that I loved working with students and loved the energy that campuses brought. So I figured this would be a great role just to kind of combine my love for HR and that student atmosphere. I love the work that I do here and the impact our student programs and recent college grads have on the company. It brings me joy. They're so talented, and that's what keeps my job really fun. So excited to talk to you guys all today.
Thanks, Tori. And now I'll pass it to Sadie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sadie Gladden. I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. I made my way down to Cincinnati to attend the University of Cincinnati, and I got my bachelor's in computer engineering. At UC, I did the co-op program and completed 3 semesters at Siemens DSIW in their strategic student program, so here at Milford. And then I also did 2 semesters abroad through UC's international co-op program, which I had 2 semesters abroad in Forchheim, Germany with Siemens Healthineers. That was actually during like the peak of COVID that I went over there, and then I ended up staying for the entirety of my 6-7 months over there. And then after I graduated from UC, I started a full-time position here at Siemens as a software engineer in the team that I did my 3 co-op rotations here in Milford with. So this is the TCIM team. I work to integrate Team Center into NX, which is our PLM software, Team Center into NX, our computer-aided design software, but I mostly do NX development. So since starting full-time, I've worked on 2 major projects, one relating to item revisioning rules in NX, and then now I'm working on an R&D project / proof of concept project for Save performance. So this focuses on Save for shipbuilding and our marine customers. So as of now, I've completed a 1.5 years full-time and just passing a total of 5 years with Siemens, including my co-op program. So right now, after joining full-time, I started volunteering to support our Women's Impact Network, which is an employee resource group. And now that my co-chair has recently moved to Florida, I've become the Milford site lead.
Awesome. And now we'll finish with Jess.
Thanks, Emma, and thank you all for joining today. My name is Jess Buckberger. I'm based in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is also where I was born and raised, same office as Tori. I went to college at Ohio State University and completed my undergraduate degree in 2016, where I studied business, concentrating in human resources, and also minored in Spanish and international studies. I really loved my time as a college student. I loved everything about the experience, and I had a pretty hard time deciding between going more of a corporate professional route or staying more involved in higher education. I decided to accept my first job as an HR manager with Target after graduation, but a few months into my first role, I met the woman at Target that was actually managing their internship program. And I immediately thought to myself, oh my gosh, that is the perfect mix between corporate human resources, working with students. How can I, get into that kind of field? I started looking around, got really lucky that I found an available university recruiter role with Siemens, and I started working at Siemens 5 years ago. My current job with Siemens, I'm our head of university relations for the United States. So I oversee 4 total talent programs, one of which is focused on internship talent, and the other 3 which are focused on entry-level or recent college graduate talent. And I absolutely love the work that my university relations team gets to do. I love the impact that we get to drive within our business and the impact that we create on the future of the company, and that the work can vary greatly from day to day. In addition to just supporting our team of recruiters, we have 6 total on the team that go out and find the best talent to bring into Siemens for these 4 programs. We also get to focus on our university partnership strategy. So which universities do we want to build that pipeline with? Focus on engagement and retention practices for early career professionals, and just look at our internal hiring processes and where can we make improvements there. And then participate in events like this that are both in-person and virtual to spread awareness of our Siemens employer brand. So I often say that I have my dream job, and I feel very lucky at Siemens. And outside of work, I just started actually a master's in business MBA program at the University of Colorado Boulder, which I'm completing in a hybrid format part-time. That's for working professionals. And I also just got engaged this December over in Europe. So a bit busy at the moment, but I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Awesome. And Jess has the best photos too for her engagement. So thank you, all 3 of you. I'm excited about our discussion today, especially, as myself, I'm a young woman looking to enter the tech world soon. So for those who are just turning in, I'd like to remind everyone that we'll be answering questions that come directly from all of you. Please submit your questions on the chat on the right of your screen, and we'll do our best to respond to as many of them as that come in. So for our first question, how can a candidate make their skills stand out when applying for a job in the technology industry, especially for newbies applying to the tech industry or students looking to break into tech? And let's start with Sadie.
All right, so I'd probably start by highlighting personal projects or things that show your technical abilities outside of just the classroom. This can be things like building your own PC or coding projects, linking GitHub, stuff like that, that shows that you have things outside of your classes that are both a priority and you finished out, and something that shows technical ability, management skill, collaboration, technical interests, and many more things. Also, technical clubs or communities are also a good thing to add to your resume, especially if you have a leadership role, because that shows so much more than just your classroom and experience there.
Yeah, that's great advice, Sadie. And I'm going to build off of that just a little bit. So having been in a recruiter role for 4 years with Siemens, I can definitely say I worked with a number of hiring managers over the years, especially when it comes to student positions. I think the number one piece of advice that I'll emphasize to students is that we know you're learning. We know that you're, still somewhat new to coding, to computer science. Again, this is really specific for those of you looking to break into tech, but we know that you're new, right? So we're not looking for you to be absolutely perfect and to nail everything 100%. We know that there will still be questions that you have, coding languages you haven't been exposed to. So what your hiring managers are really going to be looking for in those interviews are how you think through hard problems, your ability to communicate clearly, your passion for the type of work that their team offers, and the learning potential that you could bring to Siemens. So again, not looking for somebody that can be absolutely perfect, but really more looking for that ability to, what I like to say is fail fast. So if you do make a mistake, if you do, do something incorrectly, your ability to learn from that and then do better the next time. So this type of potential and just your comfort being your authentic self, that will stand out much more than someone that is just nervous to make a mistake and is trying to be perfect in the interview. So again, I would focus more on ways that you can express your eagerness and excitement about the opportunity and ways that you can, again, convey that excitement without having years of work experience. So Sadie listed some really great examples with personal projects like having a website or building a computer. If you participated in any campus hackathons or other types of engineering organizations on campus that show, again, it's something that you do in your personal time and that you are really passionate about. There's also plenty of online certifications or other training courses that you can take if you feel like you do need to pad your skills a little bit, or maybe even tutoring other students. So those are all really great ways to just show, yeah, this is something I'm excited about. I am still learning, but I'm really devoting time and I'm looking for opportunities to continue to improve.
Great advice, both of you. Thank you. What are the qualities that Siemens Digital Industries Software looks for in a candidate?
Yeah, I'm happy to start here and just build off of the last question. So again, specifically at Siemens, our 4 talent programs, they were truly started as a way to build entry-level pipelines for our business. So we do want to find candidates that are interested in building full-time careers at Siemens. So that eagerness and excitement, looking for that, again, over perfection, and just looking for students that can express their ability to think critically and to learn and fail fast are all things that we look for. But in addition, to just build off of, again, the last question, you are, as a student, you are implemented onto a team with full-time employees. So whether that's a business team, maybe a marketing team working on campaign execution, or if you're a software development student, you'll be joining an agile scrum team and some kind of development role. And it can be kind of an intimidating environment, right? Being the new person in the room, having the least amount of experience, but that's exactly why managers are excited about students. We want the fresh perspective and we want the new ideas that you bring to the table. So just looking for someone that's comfortable speaking up, sharing their new ideas, and can, again, clearly communicate what they're seeing and what their potential solutions that they might bring to the table are for the team. So looking for students that are comfortable doing that. And then just lastly, I think this is a huge benefit of working at a company like Siemens, but we are a huge company. We are a global company, so we're very diverse. So just looking for students and other new hires that are comfortable bringing their authentic self and then being respectful and kind to their fellow colleagues are a key part of our culture. So technical requirements, may vary by job that managers are looking for in particular interviews, but all of those attributes will definitely ring true for any role that you apply for at Siemens.
I completely agree with what Jess has just mentioned. 2 small things that I would add that I think are crucial are being open-minded and being able to adapt quickly to change. I think both of those will get you a long way at Siemens and in life in general. With Siemens being such a large company, as Jess mentioned, there's always something new going on, whether it's a large acquisition, taking on a new project, shifting with current trends in the market. So being able to adapt to that change in your role will significantly help you just with navigating new processes, and being able to handle those changes.
I know, Tori, you've had to adapt a lot in your role, so great advice coming from you. How do you suggest candidates prepare for an interview, and what's some of the information they must know when interviewing here at Siemens Digital Industries Software?
Yeah, great question, Emma. I think I'll touch on this first. Just again, I was working in a recruiting capacity for 4 years before transitioning into the head of university relations role. So just what I've noticed in our interview process at Siemens. So typically, and I think, again, this would probably apply for other companies, but speaking directly to the experience I know we offer at Siemens, I know your first conversation will be with a recruiter, and it's typically just a screening, just asking you about your background, about your personal story, just making sure you kind of fit the qualifications we're looking for the role. So not a lot of prep to do for that kind of stage, except for just make sure you're comfortable sharing your own story. So, it's kind of like an extended version of the elevator pitch that you might give when you go to a career fair. I would just practice, again, what are those key facts about yourself that you want to convey to potential new companies or recruiters, and get comfortable sharing those stories. When you think about a second round interview with a company, at this point, you'll have a relationship established with the recruiter that you spoke to for your screening. So as a first step to help you prepare for that second round, I would always make sure you get as much detail as you can from the recruiter. So sometimes when you receive that invitation, it might be pretty ambiguous. It might just say, we're inviting you to a second round interview. If that's the case, definitely make sure you're asking for more detail. At least like it's a technical interview focused on C++ coding should kind of be the basic that you are able to get from the recruiter. And if the recruiter's not sure, they should be able to loop back in with the hiring manager to clarify what would be expected in that next round. And then as a next step, when you're preparing for that interview, once you have some of the basics from the recruiter, the first thing I would do is go back and revisit the job description. And there's two key places that you'll want to focus within the job description. So the first is going to be the requirements of the position and potential projects that you might work on if you are hired for this role. And what you'll want to do is you'll want to use those descriptions to help prepare examples of behavioral questions that you can share about yourself. So again, for nearly any job, at least some component of your interview will be focused on behavioral questions, which are those tell us about a time when style questions. And you may have heard of the STAR method before. That's definitely what I would recommend sticking to, which for those of you that may not be familiar with STAR, it's situation, task or problem that you may have encountered, what specific action you took, and then what the result was. And just a few tips for working within that STAR method. I would keep your description of the situation and task as clear and concise as possible. Where you really want to focus your effort and where the majority of your explanation should be is on the action step, because that's the initiative that you took as the individual, the decisions that you made, the partnerships you formed, the people that you reached out to help drive whatever that result was. And then, of course, you want to share the result, but as is a fact of life, the result might not be exactly what you're hoping for every single time, which is perfectly okay. If that's the case where you have a great story to share, but maybe the result just wasn't what you were hoping for, you can just simply share that in the interview, and you can share what you learned or how you plan to change the process moving forward so that you can achieve the result that you're looking to get. So that's what I would do to prepare for your behavioral questions. Again, look at what they're looking for in the job responsibility, prepare stories about yourself that are related, and use the STAR method to guide your stories. And then the last portion that I would mention is if it is a technical interview, if there's any type of coding involved, any technical skills that you're expected to know for the role should also be mentioned in the job description. So again, important to reread that, take note of what those are. If you haven't worked with a certain language in a while, make sure maybe you're brushing up on that, taking one of those online courses, maybe look through notes from an old class if you know that you have them. But you'll just want to make sure that you know exactly what those are and that you've brushed up on them. And that's the majority of the advice that I would offer. And I think if you do those 3 steps, check in with the recruiter, prepare behavioral questions with the STAR method, and then brush up on any technical requirements that are specifically listed in the job description, you should be in a great spot for a second round interview.
So jumping a little bit off of what Jess just said and mentioning story, be confident in your story. You're telling your own story, so no one is better equipped to tell it than you. So just relax, introduce yourself, be genuine, and there's nothing that can go wrong there, I don't think. But other than that, I haven't actually done the technical interview with Siemens for a full-time position, but I've done a couple technical interviews when I was looking for internships and co-ops. So what I definitely say to start there is be comfortable at least with your own preferred coding language, and then also look into making sure you know your basics for the language of the position. With a lot of coding languages, I do think things like syntax and coding standards become a little more interchangeable, and they're things you can learn. So having the basic structure and understanding there is really good. And I think afterwards, a lot of it is learnable and transferable. So then there's a little less to worry about. But also talking with technical interviews, I think once you get a hang of most of your standards and basic problems, you can also look at plenty of online resources to help crack the technical interview. Some of these might cost money depending on where you're looking into. I know many of my friends who I've had with interviews at like Google and Microsoft have always been studying up on their technical interview skills. So it is definitely something that is important. But I think a lot of the times too, when you're talking with managers and recruiters, that a big thing is being able to talk about your past project work or experience, because those show a lot of your data structures and design abilities and things that might not be as visible when you're just doing a problem that's set down in front of you for the interview process. So being able to talk about a project that has maybe management, also timelining, collaborative efforts, and then also how you prep and work with other people, and then the design process that goes into that is something that is much more important than maybe getting all of your technical questions right. And then, oh, sorry, more things, sorry. For students, we do a lot of the times like to see in my team personally, we do like their first week, they do a like C++ course on Codecademy, which is a really good place to just start if you're not as familiar with coding. So that's just another thing, but yeah.
Great advice. Sorry, the sun keeps getting in my eyes, so I feel blinded. Not usual, typical Seattle weather here. And just as a reminder, before I ask the next question, I know all three of our panelists would love to hear from you all. So if you do have a question, please pop it in the chat. We're happy to answer them as we go along here. But another prepared question that we have, what does the career journey with Siemens Digital Industries Software look like?
Great question, Emma. I will kick us off. So I mentioned earlier that I started with Siemens back in July of 2020 in the peak of the pandemic. So I had originally applied for a full-time role, but was shortly after informed that there was a hiring freeze in place, and my only option at the time was to be hired on as a contractor. This was obviously not my first pick, but I figured this is better than nothing, and I was ready to get back to work. After 15 months of being a contractor, I was super excited to have been offered and accepted a full-time position back in September of 2021. While I thought my journey was unique, now being here, I realize it's much more common than I had thought. And I truly look at my contractor experience as a huge blessing. I had the chance to see what Siemens was all about prior to committing my tenure with them. I've always said that it's crucial to be picky when choosing an employer. And sure, experience in general definitely matters, but good experience trumps everything. And I'm thankful to be receiving that here.
All right, I'll talk a little bit about my journey so far at Siemens. So I started off as a co-op and was then offered a full-time position during my senior year. And that felt really good because I was kind of nervous about that process since it was in the middle of COVID and I wasn't really sure where to start even applying. So that was kind of terrifying in my personal opinion. But generally, I do think in software engineering, at least, you follow usually one of two paths. You can go towards an architect route, which would be the more technical route, or like a software engineering manager where you're managing other software engineers. This might not be true in all cases, but there are many steps in between. And I think it's important to work with your managers and make those distinctions clear on where you see your career path going and what you'd like to see and where you'd like to go, and maybe how they can help you get to those places.
Yeah, and I'll chime in just to wrap it up, I guess, and just to share a little bit, I guess, about my career journey as well. I think the greatest lesson I've learned is that you can't always plan where your career will go. Sometimes opportunities are presented to you that you didn't plan for. Being within HR, I think I thought the career path was you aim to become a human resources business partner. That's the next step. That's, maybe you come in as a recruiter, maybe you come in some other capacity, but you aim to become a business partner. Had no idea that being a people manager, leading a recruitment team would ever be an option. So yeah, I think truly the hardest part of this question is that it can look so different for everyone, and you don't always know what the full scope of opportunities available to you might look like. And that's especially the case at a large company. Again, like Sadie was mentioning, there's just so many different directions you can take your career. And just to speak about Siemens more broadly, we do have a motto within our people and organization or human resources function that's called Own Your Career. And this is basically the sentiment that we have a little bit of everything at Siemens. We're a huge company, we're in all kinds of locations. We have 8 different operating divisions, and there's so many different hundreds of teams within each one of those divisions. If there's something you're particularly interested in, it's probably available somewhere within the company. So there's some responsibility on you, right, as the driver of your own career to figure out what it is that you're interested in and what are the resources that can help get you there. Now that can be the question, is just figuring out what is it that you're interested in. But I think just getting into work experience, taking note of the projects that you're put on, what are you liking about each of those individual projects? Are you liking collaborating with others? Do you prefer time when you can work by yourself? Just taking note of all of these things about your own preferences as you get more and more into your work experience can help answer that question for you. At large companies, there tends to be some kind of typical hierarchical structure. I think when you do hear career journey, you tend to think of vertical movement. So for example, coming in as like an individual contributor, then moving to a manager, then moving to director, maybe to a vice president. But again, those lateral career movements where maybe you're not technically moving up, you're not becoming some type of manager, but you're switching functions, those can be just as pivotal in your overall career. And that might, help answer questions for you as to what it is that you hope to do with the rest of your career. And at Siemens, aside from moving up from a management perspective and managing large teams, you can also pursue what we call a key technical expert. If, again, you find that you prefer to stay focused on the really technical work versus less management of large teams of other people, that key technical expert limits you would never have more than 3 direct reports within the organization. And that way, majority of your time can stay focused on really highly technical projects and dedicate your time in that way. So it's a hard question to answer. It does look a little different. At large companies, it is both a blessing and a curse that there are so many opportunities. But I think you as the individual have to accept that, it's on you to do the reflection and do the work to figure out what is it that you're enjoying about your internships, your class projects, your first role out of college, and what is it that you may not want to do forever about those roles, and what do other opportunities look like? And just continue to reflect. It's a never-ending process. Maybe every 6 months, check in on how you're doing and see what is available to you, and just do your best to continue to figure it out.
Great advice. I'm just going to gently pressure the audience as well. Please submit your questions. You have 3 very wonderful people here who I know would love to answer your questions. So if I can pressure you anymore, please do it. But we'll continue. What is Siemens Digital Industries Software doing to actively advance gender equality and empower women in tech? I know, Jess, you've been talking a while, so if you want to relate to Sadie as well, just start us off. That's cool too.
Yeah, I can go ahead and start us off. So with that, I am the site lead now for WinERG, which is our Women's Impact Network employee resource group. Right now, I work with a lot of the main DSIW branch of WinERG to bring different events and resources to our local office. There's also a leadership team with them that are a great group of resources as women in different sectors of the company to be able to talk to them. And then we also just have various different chats and channels to kind of contribute towards what's going on and some of the key events or different speakers that we're highlighting at that time. So on top of that, we also have the Women's Mentorship Program, which is SWN, that is working to uplift and support women into more management and senior roles. I think Jess would also like to touch on that, I think, too.
Yeah, I can share a little more about that. So I know that at the very top of the organization, we have a new executive management training program. And the goal of that program is to specifically help elevate women into the highest level of leadership within the company. And there's, a level of realization that to get to the top level of leadership, you need to actually show that you have tackled really difficult problems. You've confronted very difficult situations. And you need a certain level of work experience and a certain opportunity to be exposed to the experiences that show you're capable of that leadership in order to be elevated into that, upper levels of leadership or management within a company. So the goal of this program is to put women into positions where they can gain those experiences and help train them again up for that top level. But moving down, Sadie mentioned this already, and Sadie is an awesome local site leader for us in the Cincinnati office with one of our employee resource groups. We have a few different grassroots efforts, I would call them. ERGs are a great way to get involved, meet other women that are interested in women empowerment within the workplace and advocating for more women within leadership roles. We also have what we call women's circles, which I'm a part of and I've really enjoyed. And again, that's more of like a grassroots effort that's just meant to help foster connections between women in our large offices with across the United States. So I meet monthly with my circle that's in Cincinnati, Ohio. Each circle is mentored or managed by a woman that's at a director or a VP level within the company. And it's really just meant to be a safe space where you can bring difficult challenges you're facing at work. You can ask for advice. You can bring in topics that you want to know more about, like how does the promotion process work at Siemens? And you can have this safe space to talk about it just with other women that are within your same company, same industry, and can give you the most applicable advice. So that's been a really great place, I think, to learn and grow and just feel supported and have the chance to meet new women at work as well. And then outside of those things that are specifically for women, I think there's a ton of learning opportunities available that, again, if you're interested, you can find at Siemens. So the employee resource groups that Sadie mentions, and Sadie runs one of our local chapters, are a great place to do that. Finding a mentor is a great idea, especially when you're early in career. Utilizing online or other instructor-led classes that you can enroll in, or pursuing some type of certification online outside of the company is a great idea as well.
Thank you. I think there was a follow-up question in the chat about one of the things that you were talking about, and is there an age limit for the training program?
That's a great question. I don't believe there's an age limit, but I believe that you have to have like 5 to 7 years of work experience at the company to be qualified for it. So most of these programs do have certain internal eligibility criteria, like you've been rated as a high performer, you have been in a management position for, let's say, 5 to 7 years, something along those lines. This particular program that I mentioned, it's in its pilot year right now, so still formalizing, I think, what those requirements will look like. But yes, there are a few that you would want to be aware of if you're interested in applying.
Awesome, thank you. And I'd also like to start with one of our questions from the audience. Looks like my gentle pressure started working. Do you have any advice on negotiating salary as an early career woman? And I don't mean to volunteer, but Tori always gives me wonderful advice on this topic, so I feel like I would love to hear your answer on this, Tori, to start us off.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. I love to see that question come through. My first piece of advice, and I've done that for internships and all the positions that I've ever held, was just do your research, both on the company and on the market trends that are going on. I will specifically, let's say, XYZ job, I'll put it into Google, I'll put Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'll put average salary. And I will go through every single web search that I can find, look and see, and average it out, right? I think negotiating is important to do, right? I would push for it myself. I've done it in the past, definitely. But you don't want to go too far out of range, right? So that's why I think the research part is important. See what the average range is and know your worth as well. I think that's important. So if you know what you bring to the table, be confident in that. Look at the job experience, what they're looking for, the requirements. So let's say if it's 2 to 3 years, maybe you're sitting at that 2 range. Then again, if you're looking at the range, base your what you're asking for off of that, right? So I think it's important just to take a leap, right? Know your worth and go for it. The worst thing that they can ever tell you is no, or they'll counter it back and say, this is what we can offer. So it's up to you. And that's why I think also researching the company, is that an awesome fit? Will you accept, what they offer you no matter what? I think that's important to do, just to make sure, is this a place that I want to have tenure with? Is this a place that I would want to put on my resume? I think that's a really important piece. So while money is important, the experience that you get and the job that you'll be holding is even more important. So to me, there's a really nice balance, right? It's finding something that you're going to love to do, but also making sure you're compensated at an appropriate amount.
Sadie or Jess, do you have anything to add?
I think Tori nailed it.
Yeah, not too much from my side too. Haven't had much experience with salary negotiations.
Tori's great for that boost of confidence for all of us young women to negotiate. So thanks, Tori. Awesome. Well, continuing on, I'm curious, do you have any mentors and what advice can you share with our audience for women who are looking to seek out a mentor that may not already have a mentor?
I will kick us off. I do have a mentor. I've had the same mentor for many, many years. She is my true definition of a girl boss. I look up to her in almost every aspect. She's a director, volunteer, mother. She has great drive, ambition, grace, enthusiasm, just everything compiled into one person. So I met her very early on when I was in college, and I kind of just in passing would ask her certain questions. She was always had an open ear for me. And when I realized that I loved all the advice she was giving, I formally asked her to be my mentor. During those meetings, we would meet one time a month. We would set goals. We would go over those goals. And really, she was just kind of a voice and an ear for me as I was kind of navigating through, my college experience and soon getting out there into the job world and a job hunt. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend for you to get a mentor, whether that's through the company that you'll be working with or outside of the company. It's just great to have somebody who you can bounce ideas off of, share frustrations, share big wins and small wins. It's just really nice to have that person in your corner, just to reach out to. So if I could say anything, is definitely to reach out to somebody just to receive that mentorship.
I'll build off of Tori. I was also lucky enough, I had a mentor in my first 3 years at Siemens. She just retired, which is great for her, but sad for me. So I'll be on the market for a new mentor soon. But yeah, similarly to Tori, I got to know this person quite well because we both work in the Cincinnati office. We were both in human resources. And I realized that she had great experience doing something that I was extremely uncomfortable with, which was a part of human resources, which is sometimes you just need to be able to sit down and have very difficult performance or employee relation type issue conversations with employees at work. So I knew that my mentor had a lot of experience with that. It was a particular skill I was not entirely comfortable with, and I knew I needed to get more comfortable and more confident with that space working in HR. So I approached her, specifically asked her to be my mentor so that we could work on that together. And she was kind enough to share her former case files with me. So once a month, I would read through those. We would discuss questions, what action she took, what the resolution was, how she got to that step. And if I had any other questions HR related, she was always happy to, like Tori said, lend an ear. But it was definitely, again, I knew my goal was to improve that specific skill. So I wanted to keep majority of our conversations focused on that. So I think if I learned anything from my time having a mentor, and as I'm thinking about maybe approaching a new mentor, there's two pieces of advice that I would pass along. The first is that you should have a goal in mind for your mentorship. So you should have something specific that you're looking to get out of it, whether it's, this woman or this person is in a position that I think I would be interested in being in 10 years from now. And I want to learn what they did to get there, what skills, what certifications, those kinds of things. Or if it's a particular skill, like for me, it was handling those difficult conversations. But you should have some type of goal in mind to help you pick who would be the best mentor for me and how am I going to structure our time together so that I'm getting the most out of it. And then the second piece of advice is that just realize before engaging in the relationship that it's really on you as the mentee to drive the relationship to be what you want it to be. So you're initiating, it's for your learning benefit, and you have to come prepared. So a mentor is not the same thing as a teacher. They won't come to your monthly meetings with a lesson plan of what they want to go over with you for the day. That's really on you as the mentee. So if you don't prep, if you don't have questions prepared, you might not have the most beneficial conversation. You might be able to catch up and have a great chat, but if you want to make and get the most out of that kind of a relationship, you just have to be willing to put in the time and dedicate that to, again, make sure that you're getting out of it what you're looking for.
So I'll talk a bit about my mentor, but so as a co-op, you get set up with a mentor and a manager through our strategic student program. So my manager has been the same as when I was a co-op and now into full-time, and I actually think of my manager as one of my greatest mentors, or one of the mentors that I didn't know I needed, which was kind of interesting because you traditionally think of your manager as the person who's probably given you work, but my manager works with me a lot to talk about my personal growth and career growth that I want to see, and he's a really great facilitator in that. And then my mentor, who I had as a co-op, no longer works for Siemens, but we still talk sometimes, and we talk about different technical skills and things that you might want or need going forward if you want to look for a promotion, or different ways of how to improve your technical abilities and skills outside of maybe domain knowledge. And that's one of those things where I don't necessarily know where to go. So having him is a great resource as well. I do also think it is important to have at least one mentor who is a woman. So one of the things that I started looking for when I joined full-time was a woman mentor, and I did get that a little bit through Ashika, who was the previous site lead for WIN ERG, and now I go to her for more career advice and things where I'm not necessarily sure but want the more female perspective on things, because it's very important, and sometimes maybe your male managers don't necessarily understand what that career path might look like for transitioning, and what maybe in 5 years, if you're thinking about kids, or what that future looks like. So being able to discuss those things is really great. And then also networking outside of the company is also important, because you can find mentors in technical ways that way as well. And I think that's great, because if you're looking within your company, sometimes it's a bit hard to find the technical information that you're wanting that's more of a basic level than pushing you in a domain knowledge direction, if that makes sense.
So inspiring. You all are so lucky. And I actually, Tori and Jess are both my mentors, so I'm very lucky as well. Our last question before we transition to the audience, but what is or are your favorite perks about working at Siemens Digital Industries Software? And I think there was a question a little bit as well about our work-life harmony, and I think that's always a good perk of Siemens. So if you are able to mention that, that would be great.
So one of the things I really like is the people in the environment. We have a lot of people on my team who have been working here for longer than I've been alive, and I think what that says to me is they really enjoy working here and working with the people that they are surrounded with, and then also the work they do. Miranda, who was one of the other co-ops turned full-time, who I met through a co-op event organized by Jess, says that it's usually a spectrum of enjoying what you work on or who you are working with. And I think that's a very important thing for you to figure out as you grow your career, because it will definitely help define what you value and help guide you that way. So yeah.
I'll continue off that. So I could not pick one. So I will give you three. The first being the work environment. I think now, again, that we've shifted out of the midst of the pandemic, Siemens is still a very flexible work environment. There are some people that are, they go in office every day. There's some people once a week. There's some people once a month. They're very open to that. I recently just started going in part-time, and it's a fresh breath air just to have human interaction and just see people. I think it ups the morale and just further engages you with your team, which I think is great. The second one would be different avenues. I know Jess has mentioned this before, but again, because how big of Siemens is, there are so many different opportunities that you can explore. I've seen colleagues, including Jess, move into different positions. Another one moved into a different, part of HR, which I think is really nice. It gives me comfort knowing, okay, and who knows, in whatever span of time, if I have interest that sparked, it's not going to immediately be shut down. I've known people, I've seen other companies do that, where it's like, well, if you're not in that role, you're out of here, you know? So it provides me a lot of comfort in knowing if something comes up that would be, you know, that would be entertained or listened to, and they could provide me the resources to potentially move into that different role. Lastly would be the people. I could be biased because I'm on the university relations team, but I think honestly, everyone I meet is so wonderful to work with. I especially love the minds of our students and our recent college grads. You guys are brilliant. Not in 1,000 years could I put myself in your shoes and get my hands on what you guys work on. So I'm always amazed. I think that they just provide such a new perspective and energy to the company. I will say another perk with Siemens in general is we're everywhere. Like, I was just at my dentist's office last week, and lo and behold, on the machine, it says Siemens. It's so funny just to be able to say, yeah, I work there. So sometimes I just give a pat on my back just for knowing that I work for such an innovative and cool company, that there's just so many different projects and companies that we're partnered with that make amazing things.
Awesome. So Fairygodboss has a tradition of asking panelists the following question. What they have observed is that women do not feel comfortable enough bragging or taking ownership of all the amazing things that they achieve. So will you share with us an accomplishment, personal or professional, that you're most proud of?
I'll start this one off, and I'll say just over the last year, managing to balance my recent promotion at work as well as staying dedicated to my graduate school studies.
So I can follow up on that one. And also, I changed my answer to this originally because I missed an opportunity recently to kind of brag the other day, because I tend to feel uncomfortable being spotlighted in a group of my peers. But I'm working on a safe performance project, which is actually really interesting, since safe implications on performance are ginormous. Because if you can save people time, you save people money, you make money. It's just insane. And so we're looking to improve save time specifically as it impacts shipbuilding. And when you think of shipbuilding, you have to think of millions of inner working parts to design a ship or a boat or anything like that. And my project team and I have identified a couple bottlenecks. And one of the biggest thing right now is we came up with a proof of concept that can take off 20% of the NX save time. And that becomes a total of 4% overall savings, but decreasing that time is really great and makes me super happy and excited.
So I will say mine is prioritizing myself. I kind of juggled around different ideas, and I just kept going back to like this past year of my life. Sounds silly just to say prioritizing yourself, but I found that it's a lot harder than it is. I just found myself falling into a terrible habit of pushing things off and just being in the same routine, like just like a little hamster. Like every day I wake up and I have breakfast, and then I go to work, and then I go to gym, and then I come home, and I just found myself not feeling super fulfilled at the end of the day. So a little over a year ago, I just made a vow to myself to do something every single day that sparks joy. Sometimes it's as little as, okay, let me stop for ice cream, like on my way home from the gym or something. Other times it's, let's make a lunch date for myself to try out a new restaurant and just have me time. I don't know, I feel like as a woman, sometimes we always feel the need to overcompensate or always be going the extra mile and just not really taking time just to be in the moment and appreciate ourselves. So that is my biggest thing. And honestly, my only regret is not starting it sooner. I think my life, my mental well-being, my physical well-being, everything has been heightened since I start that. So never underestimate or undervalue taking time for yourself. I think I know more often than not, I think we push things to the side and we do X, Y, and Z before we do something for ourselves. So that is what I'm most proud of.
Awesome. All right, so we'll transition to a couple of questions from the audience. So the first one is, what would you say is the best way to find entry-level positions? It seems like most job postings that say entry-level often require a few years of experience already.
That's a great question. And I think that can be the ambiguous part of the term entry level, is that it can, I think, some companies may refer to it as recent grad, first college, first job right out of college, or it could include like up to 5 years of work experience. So it can be a pretty ambiguous generalization. My suggestion would be to get as specific as you can with filtering through career sites. Also, if you can connect with recruiters, like for example, if you were to connect with any of the Siemens recruiting team, you could see our entry-level roles and the title of those. I can put them in the chat box if everyone is interested in that, but those are true entry-level positions. When we say entry-level, we're referring to first job out of college. So if you know specific program names where you have looked at the requirements, you can search by those specifically. That's even better. A lot of career sites, they do give you the opportunity. I think the Siemens career site, you can search by student, not yet graduated, by recent college grad, or by entry level. So maybe try the recent college graduate option as well, and that may deliver more results that are true first job out of college type openings. But I would, again, just try to be as specific as you can in your search results. Try to find specific programs that are seeking people that are hiring within the next year. Search by those names and search for other similar programs as well.
I'll piggyback off of that as well. I think it comes down to knowing your experience and your confidence in the role that you're applying for or you're interested in applying for. I know my previous role, I think I was 6 months short of what their requirement was, but I was reading through these job duties. I was like, I can do this. So I applied. I mean, was I technically in their little ballpark range? No, but I was confident that I could fulfill what they were asking. So I went for it and I got the job out of it. So make sure you just, if you're that interested in something, still apply. The worst, again, that they can tell you is no. But if it's something that you're passionate about and you really think that you would enjoy doing, I would say apply, within means, right? I think manager positions and kind of as you move up, those are more specific and they will be looking for that, those set amount of experiences. But for entry level, right, 2 to 3 years, let's say maybe you have a year, or maybe you have extra coursework that you took throughout college that would help you be a better fit or navigate through that role. I think that would help significantly. So don't be afraid to apply for something if you truly think that you connect with that position and can do it well.
Sadie, do you have anything to add?
Not too much to add to that one. I think you guys covered that really well.
Awesome. Another question from our audience. How have you furthered your learning in the areas needed for your job? Were you given opportunities to your job? Did you attend classes? Did you find your own resources outside of work, etc.?
I can go ahead and start this one off. So one of the things that was actually a really cool opportunity that I got last year was to attend Grace Hopper conference or celebration. And that was something that I had seen in one of our WinERG chats, and we had sponsored a certain amount of tickets to this event. And that was one of those places where I was like, oh, this would be a great learning opportunity and also a great technical opportunity and a networking opportunity. So that was one of those things that I took upon myself to apply for. And then also, then once I got accepted to that, making sure that you're using that time really wisely, because you get the most out of it if you're putting so much effort into it. So moments like that. And then also we have learning days that are typically, for us, I think every last Friday of the month on my team. So we utilize those to either go to a point in something that you want to innovate or look into our product, or also you can take it upon yourself as a learning day to broaden a technical field or collaborate with other people to get more domain knowledge on something that you're not so familiar with. So those are just great opportunities that I have come across and try to utilize whenever I can.
Yeah, just building off of what Sadie mentioned, Siemens does, again, Siemens specific, but we do have these learning days that are just dedicated to what do you want to learn? Pretty self-explanatory. I think the biggest piece of advice there is, again, if there's something that you specifically want to do, your company will more than likely support you, especially if it's specifically related to your current job. If it's a certification, maybe even a master's degree, some type of internal course, again, your manager, your company will probably support that. But just come up with a list of whatever it is and why it's relevant to your current job, why it would be helpful for you to complete that. Even if your company doesn't offer specific learning days that are set aside like Siemens might have, as long as you have a business justification for why it will help you in your current job, I would bet that your manager or your team would be supportive of you pursuing that.
So, another question from the chat. Back in the day, before you had a good tech job, especially at the pre-college level, what were the types of jobs that you felt prepared you best and helped you with building a good foundation for your work now? And this person's looking for some good ideas to share with a high school girls who code club.
I can go ahead and start off with that. So I was really lucky to go to a high school that had STEM classes integrated in their programs. So being part of that program was definitely something that I would probably, I guess, highlight. That was one of those things that I did as like STEM and advanced math instead of having a job in my early like high school like transition to college period, because those were things that I wanted to focus on more than having necessarily a job. But even then, I did end up having a customer service job during high school, and then also anything that's like tutoring or teaching, because I think that helps to show both patience and being able to teach people complex either problems or topics is a definite interesting thing and important thing to be able to do. So I would probably highlight those mostly.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say from all my friends, I would say never discount the customer service jobs. You never know like what connection you might make in them or like a mentor you might build from them as well. I know friends who've gotten jobs from working at Banana Republic, so you never know. And real quick, any advice on how to time applying for jobs? How early should you start? How to apply for multiple jobs at the same time? Jess, you might be the best person for this question since you have the most recruiting experience.
Yeah, that can vary greatly by company, truly. I know for Siemens, when we're looking for roles, let's say that would start in summer, whether that's an internship or a recent grad that is finishing their degree, looking for their full-time job that would start in May or June. Bulk of our recruiting is going to take place from October through March. So if you're a student, that's definitely kind of the hot time zone between your fall and spring semester where majority of hiring will be happening. Some companies may start a little bit earlier, some may extend that a little bit later, but I would say that October through March timeframe is going to be probably where you see 90% of that happening for students. In general, I would recommend trying to start looking and applying between 6 to 4 months prior to whatever start date you're aiming for. That may be a little early. Some companies may be looking for someone that's available in like 2 to 3 months. But if you start early, you give yourself more of a runway. You can look through more postings. You're just giving yourself more opportunity. So I think when in doubt, start earlier, give yourself more of an opportunity to look through, be pickier with what you're applying to, prep for your interviews more. And hopefully, again, you're seeing more traction as you get closer to that like 3 to 4 month mark out.
Fantastic. Thank you. And real quick, we'll just do a real quick lightning round here. What advice would you all give your younger self?
So I can start off, but I would definitely say make the most of every experience and always approach things from a learning perspective and approach things genuinely. And the people you learn from and look up to didn't become that way overnight or all alone. So just continue working towards improvement and being the best self you can be every day.
I would say never doubt your own ability. You are capable of doing amazing things. I would consider my younger self as creative, not necessarily ambitious when it came to the workplace. So it took me time to build confidence throughout college. And then in that way, you gain experience in what you want to go through with your life, or what your career should look like. So younger Tori would have thought she would have no set really career goals for herself. You know, she knew she wanted to have a job, have a corporate job, but to actually further it and be inspired by other people to keep going wouldn't have been a thing for younger Tori. So definitely know that you're capable of doing whatever you set your mind to.
I think I would share that when you think about your career, it really is a marathon. It extends for a majority of your life. So there will be plenty of highs, plenty of lows, plenty of days where you feel great, and plenty of days where you're like, man, I think I just need to try again tomorrow. So I think the piece of advice that's helped me the most is to just have strategies in place for what you do during those days that feel like, you know, extreme highs and lows. Find ways to kind of ride in the middle, to manage those daily ups and downs and help you avoid burnout.
Awesome. Thank you. And just in general, thank you so much, Tori, Sadie, and Jess, for joining us today, and for sharing such fantastic advice. I was really inspired. I hope everyone in the audience was really inspired. So thank you to all of us, all of you in the audience as well who tuned in for this discussion. As a reminder, we'll be sharing out a recording of today's event, along with resources to learn more about our opportunities here at Siemens Digital Industries Software. And in the meantime, you can check out our profile and jobs on Fairygodboss. But in general, we'd love to hear your feedback to help us improve future events. So please head to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen to share your thoughts in a 1-minute survey. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Emma.